video where I talk about stuff. Um, so, coming to you from North, what is a sunny Tuesday, February the 11th? My goodness, 2025. So, here's the thing, right? Especially in the world of current affairs and sports, because those are two areas where this happens to be very relevant due to the nature of human competition in the marketplace of ideas and in the marketplace of actions, right? Especially in politics and sports, but also in other avenues too. It could be culture, it could be science, anywhere where there's competition, right? Anywhere where there's competing ideas. There's a problem with teams, camps, parties, groups, tribes, nations, whatever you want to call it. There's a problem. Right? And that problem is those groups, whether they're teams, camps, parties, nations, people, whatever, organizations, those very masses that are more than one person joined together in a common cause are very often the problem. And when I mean that, they are the problem, or when I say that they are the problem, I mean the problem lies within those masses of multiple bodies, multiple people. What do I mean by that? Well, although groups of people can effectuate answers or solutions or solve problems, usually with highly effective rates of production compared to an individual, usually, they can also cause problems at a higher rate than individuals, usually. Camps cause divisions, not just between themselves and other groups or just others who are not in their camp, teams, parties. When I say any of these large group words, I'm not going to repeat all 50 synonyms. Okay? Camps, teams, parties, whatever, it's all the same. Right? Groups of people cause divisions between either themselves and everybody else, or themselves and specific other groups that they're in direct competition with in, let's say, a sports league or a political race or something like that. Or a war. Or a combination, right? Or people who are governing a certain area versus people who are in the minority who don't want them to govern that area anymore, right? For example, one party rules a democracy and then the other party is in the minority and wants the ruling party to be out. So you have a conflict of ideas. But the problem is that normally, when you have more than one person in a group, you're going to have more than one idea of what the group should do. And while they may toe the line, meaning while all members of a group may hold on certain principled values that the group shares in common with each other, there will be slight fissures and divisions that eventually grow bigger over time. And those fissures and divisions will eventually split parties or groups or whatever into multiple parties and groups, and then you have more fragmented groups. Basically, when groups realize that they can be, that they might have more in common with a smaller group than they do with the larger group that they've become, then by splitting up, they can have groups that are smaller, more fragmented, and each of them is tighter with their own set of values than the larger group. But the larger group will then have lost some power, some influence, or some representation, because it is now a smaller group. And unless all of the smaller groups reinforce it, which they won't do entirely, or they wouldn't have split off into smaller groups in the first place, that means that their larger group has lost some power and influence. And so what is an example of this? Okay, here's a perfect example of this. Okay? A politician from, let's say, a political party has a crazy idea and announces it. And everybody who supports him automatically, yay, that's a wonderful idea. Because they don't care if he says smart things or crazy things. Whatever he says, he's like a cult leader, so they're going to say yes to whatever he says. Even if he contradicts himself 10 times in the same sentence, they'll say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Whichever way he's blowing the wind in any given instant, that's how they're going to respond. They're like trained lemmings, okay? Now, people on the other side, reflexively, will also, that's a terrible idea, that's crazy, no way, that's a bad idea. No matter what he says. Even if what he says is actually a great idea. And this causes a lot of clog in the system that's supposed to be able to accommodate and facilitate compromise. Because ultimately, all politics is local, and all solutions between people, especially when it comes to the competition of ideas, when it's not about like an emergency technical process to save a life, like surgery, or a situation out in the field, like with a rescue worker trying to save a person, right? When it comes to political topics, or even sporting topics, or cultural topics, solutions to otherwise seemingly intractable problems are solved usually by one of two things. One is outright victory of one over the other, and admitted defeat by the loser. And two, compromise, political compromise. Okay? Now, you may not like compromise, and there may be times when compromise is not really possible, because one party may just simply refuse to participate in it, whereas another party might be like begging for it, like, please, we'll do anything for you, just compromise. And the one party might be like, no, I'm going to go home. I'm going to keep my things, and I'm not going to play with you. Well, if you got no ability to compromise, then your camps are twisted into a sort of Gordian knot. They're killing themselves. Effectively over time. And the reason that people stay in these kind of compromising situations, I mean, not political compromises. The reason that they stay in these compromising situations, and what I mean is situations that compromise their future, their survivability into the long future, is because of their unwillingness to compromise with their opponents. Now, there are times when compromises may not be possible. There are such times. But if you reflexively refuse everything, no matter what, without even really considering it, that your opponent is saying, then you'll never understand their perspective in any way that is useful to you, even if your aim is actually to defeat them. Even if your aim is actually to have an outright victory. And yes, you can apply this to many situations I'm talking about. Or, that you could be talking about many situations with these examples. I can give you even more specific examples. But the purpose of this video is not to bias you to one particular real group or another. Hold on. Every time I walk by these noisy ass generators, I always think to myself, why are there not more silent generators available? Of course, we know the answer, but it is ridiculous that such machines have to be so loud when it is, in fact, very possible to make the noise they produce less audible to people in the immediate vicinity. At least down to a level where it doesn't cause you like a headache when you walk by. But whatever. Yeah, so the problem again with camps is that it tends to cause extremism in ideology. Even if you don't think, or like, even if it doesn't cause extremism, like, crazy fanaticism that's violent or whatever. We're talking about, there's all kinds of extremism, right? Extremism can just be you're so stubborn that you refuse to change your opinion no matter what in an exchange of ideas, where there is in fact a third way that you can both agree on. It's just a matter of you don't want to, you don't want to change your opinion. And that could lead to very long-term problems, right? We know this from the mountains of evidence from academic research, from field information, right? From realpolitik, from competition in sports and science and culture. We see this all over the place. And arts and crafts and trades and business. We see it everywhere. Right? There isn't a field that doesn't have this issue to contend with, where there are not some extremists who are gumming up the works. It always happens, right? I mean, after all, you put 5 people together, and you're going to have that kind of issue. Why? Because there'll be one group of 2 people, one group of 3 people. Right there, that's enough to have stubbornness for some reason or another. You could even have it with 2 people, by the way. And no, I'm not going to say with one person, because that person would then need to be schizophrenic or whatever, just seeking issues with themselves. But 2 or more people can have a legitimate conflict between them that can be unresolvable if either party is unwilling to resolve peacefully. And this can cause huge problems. Another noisemaker. Just consider, right, the obvious. And I could get into more specifics. I don't read Russian, Zitot, Pantotov, but hello to you. If I do read Russian, I'm going to read it on screen. I wonder if Russian people watch my videos because of my first name, which happens to be Russian. That would be quite hilarious. Zito, is the reason that you clicked on my video because my channel name is includes my first name, which is Russian? I'm wondering. If you could answer that. Or was what is it that made you click on the video? I am curious. Was it the title of the video, the thumbnail? I doubt that. My name? What was it that made you click on my video? I am curious why you guys click on my videos. If you can't tell me, that's okay. I'm just curious. But whatever the reason is, thank you for being here. If you want me to give you more specific examples of into the type of groups that I'm specifically giving examples of that are unwilling to compromise. And I don't, you see, if I give you very specific examples, you will automatically side with one side of that example or the other based on your own bias. Right? So, anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go now. And if you want more examples, then leave comments. And if I see that the majority of the comments wants me to leave very specific examples in another video about this, then I'll do that. In the meantime, in extremist views of things, and I hope that you find it easy to make compromises, because that is what the world needs a lot of the time. In fact, most of the time. Okay? All right, that's it for now, folks. Peace.